TV, this is Andrew Marchand. Apple TV is emerging as the potential landing spot for the Pac-12 college football rights, with ESPN, Amazon Prime Video, and Fox Sports lukewarm to the league. Apple could end up being the platform for the Pac-12, and you never know because we've never really seen the streaming be the main part of anything. And if this ends up being a bunch of money and Apple goes all in, Apple Plus TV, good for them. At least that is a sign of what might be next.
From what we've been told or what's been reported, that if Amazon is part of this deal and there's a large streaming component, it's not going to be everything. Like ESPN would be the main partner, and ESPN Plus and Amazon would be where most of the Pac-12 stuff goes. I get the feeling that Apple would kind of be an all or nothing deal. They are. That's why I thought they were going to get the Sunday ticket, and what kind of held that up was they wanted Apple has so much money. Now Amazon has, this much too, but Apple has so much that they wanted to get the Sunday ticket and just include it in the subscription price of $4, $5, $6, $7.99, whatever it is, $9.99 a month, whatever it is, and everybody who has an iPhone and Apple TV Plus and all of that can get the Sunday ticket, which would increase the Sunday ticket's market share enormously. But there are several things in that, meaning that local games, there's blackout rules and things that Apple did not want to apply. No, I don't care if there's someone's iPad or their Apple TV app or whatever is in a city with a blackout. No, we're not blacking out anything. They were kind of, this is what we want to do, and there are just rules that they couldn't get past, which is why it didn't happen for them and why it went to YouTube TV, who also has a ridiculous amount of money because they're Google. But if they got all of it, then that would be the bold move the Pac-12 is doing, is putting it over there. Now, I don't think it would be the absolute worst idea for a conference that's mostly on the West Coast to go all in with Apple TV, because I think most of the West Coasters probably use that service and have that service, and especially the Silicon Valley area. I think I would actually prefer that to Amazon, if I'm the Pac-12 presidents, just based on the amount of devices alone. On this table right here, there's 5. Oh, no, actually, how many Apple devices? I've got a watch. There's 3 iPhones and 2 computers. There's an Apple computer over there. We've got
I'm sure we've got probably a few dozen of whatever.
Yeah, there's
like that.
But just in this room alone, that's the Pac-12 is kind of on my device. If I do that, now that's more of the future than the present. But if you have to do that and you're lukewarm to everything else, and Apple can maybe give you a nice chunk of money, I would say do that if I'm the Pac-12, especially at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you only have so many options, right? It doesn't sound like they really have like 10 other things that they could say, no, we prefer this. I mean, this looks like it's probably the deal that they're going to get, the best deal that they're going to get. I mean, as it mentions in the article, there's flailing interest elsewhere or lukewarm interest, or certainly not the interest that would have gotten a deal done, a long time ago at this stage rather than heading into March. And you've had these open rights now for quite a while. And in the meantime, another conference has swooped in and grabbed the cable outlets, and you've still gone on and continued negotiating, and there's been all this trash talk about realignment and all that, and you've still gone on and been negotiating. So, I mean, yeah, at some point, like, that's the whole thing with the story. At some point, they have to sign a deal with somebody. Like,
somebody has to carry them.
Eventually, you have to sign a deal. So if it's Apple, great for them. Again, I have not been anticipating their death. I never for 1 second thought that there would be 0 TV deal. But again, it's all about the numbers. So what are we talking about? I think there was the mystery over the landing spot, like conversation about that. So yeah, certainly Amazon was what we thought maybe a week ago. Now today it's Apple. Kind of feel like we're going all the way back to the very start, quite frankly, because Apple was a mentioned outlet for them just because of, there's a lot of Silicon Valley alums and that whole thing. If you'll remember that months and months and months ago, that was just a logical choice for them. So now we're back at square one, almost, it feels like, with Apple and the Pac-12. And maybe that's just because it makes the most sense, and maybe because that's just the right fit for them. And if so, great. But there's a lot of details missing from this. Primarily, what's the money? And what are we talking about exposure-wise? Is every Pac-12 game on this network, like Paul's suggesting? I can't imagine that would be the case, to have it all exclusively streaming. There'd have to be, you would think, some element of ESPN here, or I guess that'd maybe be your only other option for late Friday nights or something like that. But, yeah, I mean, let's see what the numbers look like, if, in fact, this is the path they're going to go down, and, then let everybody take it from there as far as, talking trash and all that. But this is about, you just switched the names Apple and Amazon. This is basically where we were a week ago. It's just a different outlet, but mostly streaming is what they're looking at. And look, they might be on the cusp of the future, or this might be like when they launched the network and it was a total disaster that they are now years later trying to get out from under.
Well, here's the thing. They have a 10-year, $2.5 billion agreement, Apple TV Plus does, with MLS. That's a ton of money. As you mentioned, they have all the money in the world to stream all of the league's games with an all-inclusive package that is $99 for subscribers. Now, if you can get yourself on a streamer, that's great. If you can get money for that, that's great. But if it's going to be tied in to how many subscribers they get, then you get in return, that can get to be a little bit dicey.
That's the per inquiry sales, which we have to do sometimes in our business. Is like, okay, yeah, we'll throw up a link, and if people click it, then we'll get money. If it's very minimal effort to us, that's fine. But that's the Pac-12's burden. Here's the other thing. I'll just suggest this about Apple. I don't know if you guys remember this, but several years ago, we all woke up in the morning, and on our iPhone, in your music app, or at that time it was iTunes, was a U2 album for free for everyone in the world who had an iPhone. Now, getting past the fact that Bono was such an arrogant AWOD that he thought everyone in the world likes my band and they would love this free album, Apple bought that from him, and they did it, mostly just to show that they could. But if I'm the Pac-12, I'd say, look, you can have all of it, but we want the Bono deal where everybody in the world gets Pac-12 blasted, and that was by far U2's lamest album. And he had it for free, and it took me years to get that thing out of my music. Years.
Oh, I see that pop up when I got playlist or whatever. I see that pop up. If Apple were to make an agreement, then it would presumably produce more than just football for the Pac-12, possible production from the Pac-12 network. We've discussed the network before and how they've struggled with that. Apple, though, let's not forget, were they not involved in wanting the Sunday ticket, the NFL Sunday ticket? That never happened. So, but this is at least something that you can kind of grab onto. Whether or not the Pac-12 and whether or not Apple TV Plus do this remains to be seen. That's from Andrew Marchand in the New York Post, also, of course, a part of the Sports Business Journal with his podcast with John Alran.
Yeah, they have baseball too, right? Friday night baseball. So would there be any crossover there early in the season? I don't know what their schedule looks like, but would there be like any August or you don't really any September Friday night games that you'd have to flip out with the Pac-12 football?
I don't know.
They have Apple TV Plus began with live Friday night baseball games last season.
Doesn't seem. You could have more than one thing on. I suppose it's just streamers, so you can have like 20 things on.
Remember the text or the email I received last week from someone that lives in the West Coast that this is kind of how people are consuming a lot of things as far on the West Coast. The question is, how much are they going to offer? How much, if anything, and maybe none, tied into how much and how many subscribers they get. But here is, at least it's Apple. I think most everyone thought it might be Amazon for the longest of time. Bob Thompson is very close to rejoining us at some point this week. Just waiting on a little bit more information he's trying to gather, but that would be great to get him on if we can here in the next day or two, or at least this week. All right, coming up, it's 4:38. Let's see a couple of Daniel. Well, I've never watched the Pac-12 if that comes true. MP going to catch Washington versus Washington State, Oregon State on FaceTime. This is really the audience you want. And I'm not going to go there. If this works for them, because we don't know. This could be maybe something that really just kind of is really good. I don't know enough about the business with that.
Well, I'll put it this way with streaming is I don't think Apple's just one that everybody has automatically. I mean, you can buy Apple products, and they give you like 4 months free of TV. So if you want to go buy some headphones and get your whole football season paid for, then you could do that. But it's not one of like my priority streamers. Like, I mean, as far as programming goes, it's not one where I'm like, yeah, that's right at the top of the line. I would, in this case, I would basically go to Apple to make sure I watch the Pac-12. And I don't know, as somebody who, I love college football, but I'm not going to be spending all my money to watch it. You know what I mean? Like, if there's another game on ESPN2 on a late Friday night when I get home from high school football, I'm not, like, worried about jostling for Oregon State and Washington State, no offense. So I'm curious that, if most of their audience has it, on the West Coast and all that, that makes sense. But I'm curious of how many casual fans of the conference would pony up specifically for Pac-12 football on Apple TV, or do you just already have it? And I'm not talking about that scenario, but would you go get Apple TV for the Pac-12? I wonder just how many people that would involve.
Well, let's read some of the comments on the chat room real quick, because a lot of people also have their opinions on this too.
Yeah, but that's what they would be banking on, is that Pac-12 fans would go find it.
Right.
And then what they'd be risking is that no one else would.
From Polo Bear, Apple isn't even the leading streaming service. If my school's president was okay with that move, when they could be on ESPN and Fox, I would want them fired. Benjamin Hawks, they want viewers on Apple, assuming they really are interested. Let's see. St. Louis Bengal, pay to watch the Pac-12. Why would I do that? Let's see here.
And as much as streaming might be the future, that is a mentality of a lot of people. Like, I mean, you could say the same thing if the Big 12 was all of it was on ESPN Plus. Like, I don't know. Everybody's like, I got to go buy ESPN Plus to, I mean, you got to have it to watch certain games, but if it was the whole shebang, and that's why the details are important. Like, how much money are they making? Because if they're making way more money, or they're making more money than if there's firmly like the third place conference or what have you, then are we still joking about it? I mean, probably not as much, right? Because I think the thought probably is like, oh, well, not only are they going to be mostly streaming, which we don't know for sure, but it's all going to be behind a paywall, which we don't know for sure, and it's not going to be as available, which we don't know for sure, elsewhere. So there's a lot of details, like what partnership do they have outside of Apple, and whether or not all of it would be on there. What does the money situation look like? And like how many people can be expected to go and pay out of pocket just to simply watch those games on another streaming network?
RH5, I'm just having a hard time comprehending that the Pac-12 may not get a TV deal with the primary provider being ESPN or Fox. We've heard that CBS is out, at least now. We've heard that Fox may not be in because of what they're doing as well elsewhere, and really what also might be down the road in the future. And we've heard that ESPN might not be out. ESPN might need those late night time spots.
But they might not be in as much as they want them to be, so ESPN might say we're in for this.
Right, and he's saying that in the end, if this is the case, and again, we don't know, this is just something that's a report. Andrew Marchand's really good. The Mountain West then might end up with more exposure television-wise than the Pac-12.
Well, what you risk with going all streaming, and the problem with streaming is, again, just the functionality of it, of the fact that I have to leave a game completely to go to another game and search it, as opposed to just hitting previous on my remote for my cable or satellite. And that's how you kind of, I can't tell you how many games I've accidentally watched as in this job of, okay, we're watching, Iowa State and Kansas State's a great game. I hit previous once it's over, and I'm over on ESPN, and holy cow, Washington and UCLA is a barn burner, and I'm locked into that. Well, now I'm watching this Pac-12 game that I might not have gone and sought out before, but if it's all streaming, I'm going to have to search it out. So there's no more accidental viewing of the Pac-12, and that is half of TV, especially after about 9 o'clock p.m., that people watch is what is on. I'm just going to flip around.
How many times did either one of you, and I know I did, when I came back from, let's say, Baylor played a 6 o'clock game or even an afternoon game that was late in the evening and you're trying to just decompress, and you'd turn on the television and there was a Pac-12 game, and I would be glued to it. Mm-hmm. That Pac-12 late night or whatever they used to, after dark. Let's see. Maybe this Apple TV could cause problems with scheduling Power 5 non-conference teams in a home-and-home play. That's from Provo Cougar fan. I'll say this. I am learning technology every day, including even with what I have. But I don't know, like, where do you find it? Is it online? Is it on your laptop? Is it a smart TV? Okay, all right.
It's an app. It's
and
the
I have
same exact
Netflix
thing.
to watch that golf series that I'm now episodes 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, I mean, you can watch it on your phone. You can watch it just like ESPN Plus, just like Apple, or Disney Plus, just like Hulu. It's all the same thing, all the exact same thing. So if you have one of those apps, you could have this app just as easily and be able to watch it. And I'm pretty sure they're already locked into your iPhone anyways. Like, it comes with the little TV. I don't even know what the logo is anymore, but I know I've got it on my phone. I can just pop it up and start watching away the movies in my library or Apple TV. But yeah, I mean, it's not one of the primary ones right now. I think probably for most people. I don't know what the average audience is for Apple streaming, but I mean, if they feel like this is going to help grow that, and the money's worth it, then like MLB, like MLS, they'll add Pac-12 into the fold. I mean, it makes sense if you're trying to expand, but again, a lot of it just comes down to what kind of numbers are we talking about and what kind of exposure are we talking about? Because I do think, as much as streaming may be the future, if this is some all streaming deal, which is hard to imagine, so I'm kind of skeptical that it is. That's a whole other thing than if it's game of the week on Friday night, 2 games a week, and then the rest is on ESPN. Like, that's 2 completely different things to look at. So until we know that for sure, it's hard to say with too much certainty how to feel, or even, really know how to feel as far as whether this is bad or this is good. It's just, hey, Apple and the Pac-12 might sign together, but beyond that, we have no clue about all the rest of that. So that's interesting, and not all that surprising that they're involved, because, again, if you circle all the way back to the beginning, that was a rumored landing spot for them. But look forward to seeing some more details, and hopefully more details sooner rather than later, because, again, at some point you have to get a deal done and get your future secured. And they know as well as anybody that everybody's on the outside chatting about them right now. So I'm sure they want to get it done as much as anybody.
When we come back, Craig Smoak